What you need is a physical API gateway, which is like an infrastructure level security. It's not that costly. You need to build this. When I say build this, you have to integrate. So if you have a liability system for onboarding a liability customer deposit, and whatever core banking system you have, you integrate API once. It's a one-time integration. You have a lending system, you do integration here. You have a credit card system, you do one time. It has to start. That a step needs to be taken. Now it's not going to be, as I said, it's not going to be on the silver spoon that, okay, aake plug and play kar diya, and then everything will be fine. No. Bank will have to take that step. In India also, like, you'll be surprised the TCS core banking system, until now, it is built on COBOL. I'm not kidding. The back end of the TCS bank was COBOL. They have changed now, just a year back. A piece is but still, somebody has to integrate with them. So API, you can write the APIs, you can write the stored procedures to integrate it once, but you can't let the external ecosystem to talk to it directly. Because here is the entire control panel. You need to ensure security, you need to ensure resiliency, you need to ensure business orchestration. I'll give an example to Michael yesterday. So payment APIs, your core banking, I'm sure there are a lot of payment APIs you guys have. You cannot expose this core, all this payment API directly to fintechs or directly to corporates. So if, let's say, your bank wants to integrate with the corporate with a salary account, or even for the payments, you can't open up all of them to integrate with the corporate. Corporates would need a single payment API, which means you have to build a payment orchestrated API over here, business logic. I'll give you a classic example. Like typically, when I'll go a little technical for people to understand, ultimately, the database of a core banking is either Oracle or SQL or anything, and they have the restriction. They have the restriction from the point of view of they can take, at any point in time, only single transaction. So if in an hour, or probably in a minute, you want to do 10,000 transactions, how is it possible? How is it possible? Because transaction will fail, because the record gets locked for every transaction. So what this system does is it builds a logic that it will queue the transactions for a milliseconds, and as soon as the record is released, it will go. So if there are 1,000 transactions in a minute, none of them will fail. So this is the layer you have to build it. And to build this, it requires a hand and a glove combination between the bank's business team, or particularly I would say the ops team, business operations team, and the technology or whoever the startup things are. If bank technology tries to build that on their own, they can't. I tried to build it on my own, I couldn't when I was a part of the bank. But now when I see a bank trying to outsource it to a partner who built it for them, it's a one-time activity. But it's a pain which will start in parallel. You have to start this thing in parallel, build it, and then decommission the old school of thinking. So it's not easy, but this is the way to go. Because APIs are available here nowadays. Because most of the core banking systems are giving APIs. So this integration will not be that challenging to answer the question, unless it was a COBOL-like a system, which I don't think so it exists any longer. So it's I would say, difficult but not impossible.
Hardik IVF and Fertility Center,
where miracles come to life.
Good afternoon, Nepal. I can't tell you how much I love this country. I'm a mountain person, and you guys are so blessed to be part of living in this environment day in and day out. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Setopati, for inviting me on this session. So I was just listening to what Michael and Ritesh were talking about. So just to give you a little bit of context, Ritesh and myself have worked in the bank together, where he used to tie up with the fintech, and I used to integrate with the fintech. So that's we've been doing for almost close to 15 years from now. So I'm here to kind of give you guys a little bit of how India has emerged from a fintech resistant to fintech partner or competition area. But at the same time, I will also want to give you a flavor, because generally people assume, as Ritesh rightly said, banks are elephant, and I've been part of that elephant ecosystem. And then to integrate with the fintechs, it becomes a challenge, because fintech gets generally pissed off, pardon me for that, but they get irritated when they find it integration to be a challenge. And I tried my best to see how best we can integrate the fintechs faster in the ecosystem. So the way I'm going to cover these is into 3 buckets. The evolution of the collaboration between the fintechs and banks. What are the regional and the global trends going on? and what is the future of this ecosystem going to be. And that is purely my 30 years of experience in the banking and what I'm seeing happening. That's where I've tried to do justice to this piece. So quickly, way back in 2010 and 2015, when I was part of the bank, Ritesh was part of the bank, we were trying to think. A lot of worry was that fintechs are coming into, they're less regulated, they will kind of throw the banks away, they're going to be the front runners, banks won't exist in few years' time. That was the initial thought process. And people like us were very resistant to begin with. But at the same time, I know Ritesh and I took a lot of bets. In 2015, we exposed our core banking payment API to one of the e-commerce company called Snapdeal. And that was a big success in the Indian e-commerce, a boom of Indian e-commerce businesses at that point in time. So this was that 5 years period I would like to just highlight. Then came a time where we realized that there's no need to worry with fintechs. We can partner with them. We can partner with them for the reasons they are very nimble, they are very, very agile, they can focus on a very specific areas of technology and quickly turn around. On the other hand, banks were very, very, I love to use the word elephant, and they were very, very, I won't say slow, but they had a lot of compliances, there were a lot of resistance of building this innovation. So they thought, doesn't make any sense for us to kind of reinvent the wheel. We'll partner with fintech ecosystem, and we'll see how we can grow together. And which is why things started happening. The sourcing went to fintechs, the payments went to fintechs, and the bank was focusing on the compliance and other part, which was covered by my earlier panel. Then came a time post-2020 where things started happening, co-opetition, which the word you keep on hearing. So even that exists today. So fintechs and banks, they coexist. They coexist from the point of view, in some areas, fintechs has a very clear edge. They build something, and the bank, at the same time, consumes those. At the same time, they are also competing in some area. But the good part is the roles and responsibilities are very clearly identified in terms of what fintechs will do, what banks will do. So for example, when it comes to payment, settlement and compliance is bank's ownership, period, on that. Fintechs will use user experience. Having said that, it doesn't mean that fintechs won't focus on the compliance part and the other portion. They do focus, as Ritesh rightly mentioned, they do also that area so that banks don't face any challenge in terms of, so they collaborate very well when it comes to, likewise in the lending. The balance sheet and the products will be owned by the banks, and the regulation will be owned by the, on the bank, but at the same time, customer acquisition will keep on happening from them. So likewise, this co-opetition era started. So this is the business model which Michael and Ritesh spoke about. I will go a little bit detail into the technology. So when fintech partners with bank, fintech has the challenges. They have to maintain two relationships with the banks. One is the business relationship, which I mentioned that Ritesh used to get into business relationship with the fintech in terms of bilateral sourcing, payments, and other area. The second relationship fintech had to maintain with the bank is the tech integration. And that generally, I would say not generally, mostly was the problem area. When I say problem area, it was that the way business used to collaborate between the fintech and the banks, the technology was lagging behind. So business was way ahead in terms of the collaboration, but the technology was leading behind. And trust me, that is even the case in India today. I'm not going to say that this problem is solved. And what we see today, a couple of leading banks are kind of solving that problem. I was talking to one of the leading private sector banks. They have thousands of fintechs and corporates ready to be integrated into the banking ecosystem of that bank. But unfortunately, the technology team in that bank becomes a bottleneck, and which is where the problem arises. How are Indian banks solving that problem? I'll just come to that. But before that, mapping to what I said, I'll try to map. I won't go here, advantages, both of them have listed down, so I'll just go a little bit ahead. So I will talk about a little bit about the banks, and I'm sure the bankers, technology sitting over here would agree with me. So typically in the bank, things have evolved over a period of 3 decades. So let me talk about the liability business. When liability business starts, you buy the technology core banking system. You buy the core banking system, you start configuring the products on top of it, whether it's a CASA, deposits, variant. Then you started building the channels associated. And then the business operation person, he builds the onboarding, offboarding, reporting thing. So what happens is now this has become a silo. This has become a silo in itself. This has been a complete silo. Likewise, when it comes to a lending area, you have the same things happening, but they are kind of another silo which is being there. You look out the card system and you look out n number of systems. So what happens is if you look at the technology pyramid, 20 years ago, it still exists in a lot of banks today. The system of records were at the top of the technology pyramid. So technology pyramid, you would have a liability system, you have a lending system, you have a card system, you have a treasury system, you have a gold loan system. So you have many systems of record. And then you have the processes and the technology individually around each one of them. Now this architecture is a challenging architecture for fintech to integrate. And unfortunately, or fortunately, things are moving in the right direction, but not at the speed. Even in India, I'll be very candid. Even in India, it has not moved at to the speed which fintech people would love to allow. So from 2015 onwards, things have started changing slightly. Now what has happened is all these systems are here, but an API gateway and the data bus architecture has come down. Why did this come down? I'll tell you the reason, and pardon me if there are some IT companies, big IT companies over here, it's because of them. What had happened is all these systems, what you see over here, liabilities, they are all IT companies. They have become a mafia now. When I say they have become a mafia, if a bank technology person wants to do a simple customization, they will go, they will take 8-9 months, they will charge money. The same customization, if other banks ask, they will still take money from them. And that's how all these IT giants have come up across the globe, not only India, across the globe. So they have become a mafias at this point in time. Now to get rid of these mafias, bank has to do something. So what banks started doing is they created an API gateway. And they said, okay, here is my data in all the systems. I'll create a data lake. They started getting into a data lake concept. Okay, so here they go. So they thought they will do a cross-selling, upselling, using this, having a unique identifier. Having said that, lots of banks have started this journey, but not effectively, I would say, capitalized on those journeys. What do I mean by that? They have done, so for example, data lake is used for regulatory reporting, for MISs, centralized everything, but for cross-sell and all, very few of them have started consuming. This is an area which is a very important piece which I want to highlight today. So what banks have started doing is to de-risk from these IT giants, they have started a process of getting this API banking or a business transformation layer formed. This layer is important from the point of view of having banks own source code and I wouldn't say IP, but source code with them. So all these system source code, none of them exists with the bank. It probably exists with the escrow companies and other. If that IT company goes down, then you get in, which is of not much use to bank. But when the business transformation layer, so for example, when it comes to lending, now you have, in India, you have so many lending products, and most of the lending products have their own technologies. Gold loan has their own technology, house loans, personal loans. Now, what happens is these IT companies start building business rule engines in these silos. Now, you don't need to have a business rule engine built at each and every product layer. You can build a common business engine rule at the top, at the organization layer, and then use the synergies to onboard your customers on that. So this layer has started. So this journey started in 2015. I started this journey in Yes Bank along with Ritesh in 2015 pieces. And then how we can use these two blocks to service. So for example, I'm a high net worth person in a liability of a particular bank, and I am not a credit card customer. If I want a credit card, you don't have to start this process again in silo. You just refer over there and say, yeah, he's already an existing customer, no KYC, nothing needed. Bang on, here is your credit card, for example. I'm just leading. Any lending product, you have all the information available in the data lake, you do that. That was an idea of data lake. But again, I'm saying, ideal, but everybody has a different state of maturity when it comes over here. I'm talking about now future. Now, I think that is where you guys need to learn. I'll just quote Sundar Pichai. Like Google says, I don't want to be first in any area. I'm happy to be second. But when I'm second, I will ensure that I'm 100 times better than what the first person did in terms of stability, in terms of the scale, or any areas where. And that's where I feel Nepal has an edge. My suggestion, or if I am here as a part of you, I don't want Nepal to follow any country. I want Nepal to take a skip in a generation of technology and move towards the future technology. So you do basics. I'm not saying that you straight away take a big jump. You keep on doing the QR code, something which is easily replicable, do it. But at the same time, when it comes to the banks, when it comes to the fintech ecosystem, you need to build an architecture which has to be future ready. And future, we know that AI is future. AI is future. And you don't want AI to talk to, banks don't want, like other domain industries have started consuming AI very big. Banks want to consume, but banks don't want to kind of consume AI, which is by design a probabilistic nature. Banks want something deterministic. For example, can a bank implement AI saying that $100 million loan disbursed based on AI recommendation? Is it possible? Technically, it's possible, but how accurate it will be, we don't know, because it is done based on the probabilistic. But having said that, nowadays things are being done where you can pick up the probabilistic nature of an AI, train them based on the deterministic, the people who are underwriting it, take their views, take their input, create one, and then you can do it. So technically, it's possible. Even business-wise, it would make sense. Nobody's doing it as of now, but that's possible for a high-ticket items also if somebody wants to take a view on that. So my recommendation to Nepal would be ready for that. Don't create so Indian banks have evolved over a period of time. Today, they have a monolithic technology sitting behind the banking ecosystem, which is why Ritesh calls them an elephant. You guys have an advantage. Skip that elephant. Make that elephant a very lean technology platform for you guys. Don't make it too complicated in this space. So what do I mean by that? So bank in future are not going to work in a traditional way. They are not going to have branches where people will come and open the accounts. They will not have channels where people will come and open. They might have it. I'm not saying they may not. They will have to be looking out at the banking ecosystem. So banking have a product. Let's talk about the lending product or even the liability product. When they partner with fintech, who are digitally native, cloud native, the reach that bank product will have is tremendous across the country. So you don't need to be present in every part of the country physically. You can use the fintechs to source your liabilities, your assets, you name it, anything. So bank is going to, or probably it is already, but it's going to be much more powerful ecosystem, where you will have two kind of an ecosystem, a digital public infrastructure and a distribution channel. As Ritesh said, distribution channels are the fintechs. You guys, not only the fintechs are the distribution channels, even the corporates are the distribution channels. And that is where even Indians are starting. So for example, if a bank wants to onboard a corporate for salary accounts, simple on that. Today, they go to the banks and then say, okay, salary account opening process. You don't need to do that. If corporates have a infrastructure where bank is integrated with corporate, any new person joining any corporate goes to the internet and say, I want to open up an account with XYZ bank. And Zoom, the entire process will follow. And it can start automatically without the experience that person gets, and then the technically possible. Banks in India have started doing that. Payments has been done for, I would say, over a decade and a half. And then again, I would say Ritesh was a pioneer in building that for Indian. Now, even liability sourcing or even the lending pieces has going in that. So this is going to be key. But before I dwell a little bit on the business model, let me go a step on the technology sides. So we just spoke about this. We spoke about the gateways. We spoke about this. Now, AI is going to be sitting on the top. Now, this is an important piece I just wanted to lead you now. So one thing which is happening over here is you will see this system of record by hollowing the core. Now, oops, sorry. Hollowing the core. So this is one of the important concepts which has started globally. Hollowing the core, which means all these IT companies who are sitting at the back end of the banks have become mafias. Now, how do you de-risk bank? You remove the business intelligence and move it over here. Move it here on top, the API banking area. Move the data from here. You cannot throw these companies away, but you will need to de-risk them by doing basic thing. Liability vendor, you do only credit and debit. Don't apply any more intelligence. You are a lending vendor, don't apply business rule. You just maintain the system of record. If you are a credit card vendor, you just do the transaction verification. You don't need to do anything else. Today, all these people are doing much more than what is needed. And these have become so monolithic giant that banks have at the mercies of these folks. So this hollow the core concept has started in India. Now, the reason I am putting agentic AI and reimagination of business process at the top, because AI is no longer a flavor of the season. Banks will have to adopt. Board is questioning the management. How are you doing? What are you doing? And as Ritesh said, even though regulations are there, regulations are the ones which will lead to innovation. So even though the regulations are there, how can you use AI more innovatively, reducing the risk for the bank in the area? So I know for sure there are the banks are focusing how can they increase their revenue using AI? How can they improve their bottom lines using AI? How can they improve the customer experience using AI? How can they improve how can they reduce the risk by using the AI? So these are the 4 buckets banks in India and probably globally have started also to look into this. So what I am saying is 20 years ago, this was the top of the pyramid when it comes to technology. 10 years ago, this is the top of the pyramid, the center layer. From now onwards, the top of the pyramid is going to be AI. So how AI and API banking needs to partner to take banks and the fintechs to the next level. Keep it in mind, banks will never allow AI to talk to the system of record directly. And it's not the right architecture also to allow AI to talk to the system of record. So the way AI will work is, AI needs 3 important ingredients for it to work. They need first processing capability in GPU, which are available in Nepal in anyone. They will need data, which a bank has created. And they will need the business APIs. They will need the business API, which are available over here. So with these 3 ingredients, AI can sit on the top of the pyramid. And it is, I would say, lots of companies have started this, banks have started this area. Somebody will follow and make a kind of I would say, use case about it. Now, I'm asking a simple question. You guys are using WhatsApp. Why can't you onboard a liability customer on a WhatsApp by having a conversation with one of the banks? We can pick it up. We can have a conversation on the bank and onboard a liability customer. Technically, it's possible, but nobody's taking that call because they feel regulator might raise a question. You can onboard. You have to do a KYC, which you can always do it on then. You can do video KYC. You can verify the national IDs. You can verify the payments, the PAN card equivalent in over here. You can do that. You can always onboard a customer on this. For mutual funds, you can always onboard a customer on a WhatsApp for a mutual fund. You can always recommend the mutual funds to be buy, and you can also service, which means transact the mutual fund on WhatsApp. Technically, it's possible. I'm not saying it's being done in India, but I'm saying you guys need to think in that direction. Don't try to follow any country. You can take a leapfrog from here on. And it's possible on that. I was so pleasantly surprised by Honorable Finance Minister Dr. Wagle, the way Nepal government is trying to do that. I would recommend you guys make the best out of that. Make the best out of that to see how you guys can skip a generation. Like in India, I remember the rural areas, while banks and others started from desktop, laptop, mobile, rural areas started straight away from mobile, because they skipped a generation of laptop and technology. They started consuming the mobiles on that. You guys have an opportunity to skip a generation of that current trends, skip a generation and go to the future banking. And I think for that, it's important for the fintech and the bank to create the right lean technology architecture at the back end, which is business-aligned architecture. Normally what happens is IT teams of a bank goes in one direction and the business is going in another direction, and that causes a lot of challenges. So if there are some CIOs from the bank or the business heads in the bank, we need to figure out the technology and bank and the business in the bank have to go hands in glove pieces. Now, so I'll just quickly summarize on this point. Back, this was the top of the tier. All the core systems were sitting at the top of the tier. 10 years back, API gateways and API banking system has started to sit on top of them. Future is that AI is going to sit on top of that. AI coupled with API banking is going to sit at the top of the pyramid in your banking ecosystem architecture. You need to focus on that piece now. Rather than traveling this journey, you start from top. You start from top on this area, is my recommendation to all of you. I'll give you how this can be done. While I've been speaking about you need to do it, how this is being done in India. So when it comes to I showed you that banks and the banking ecosystem, there are two things you will get. You will get digital public infrastructure and a distribution. And distribution, you can also have corporates in that as well. In digital public infrastructure, you have participant-like authorities. In India, you have Aadhars and bureaus and NSCL, NPCI. These are all authorities in India pieces. Then you have networks, GEM, aggregators, Samiti, like they're sitting. And then you have fintechs and ISV, who are also sitting over here, like Perfios is there, Science is there. And this is not an exhaustive list you have. Now, what do? They provide two kinds of services. Either they provide two kinds of an offering, I would say. One is service and the other one is data. When I say service, like Science provides eKYC, video KYC as a service, as a fintech to the banks. At the same time, Aadhaar and other, they provide a data. They provide a data about bureaus. They provide a data about a person. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs provides a data about the companies and all those assets. And the good part is the Indian government has started digitizing all their assets, including the land assets, which were the most one, they had started digitizing it, which means the APIs are available for anybody to verify this house belongs to Anup Purohit, where it is existed when it was signed. So those APIs are available. EPFO, Provident Funds, people are trying to now get an API from Provident Fund. If Anup is paying X number of Provident Fund, which is 10% of his salary, means Anup's salary is this, he's a good customer, we can lend him. So people are finding avenues, as Ritesh rightly said, finding avenues to get some logic so that they can lend properly. So there are a lot of things. So digital public infrastructure is key. I know you guys have started in Nepal to build this ecosystem. It has to be built jointly and leveraged across. And then you have distribution. So fintechs generally come into this. While fintechs are here also, they come into a distribution channel as well. They can, like I was showing you the clear roles and responsibility between the fintechs and the bank. So fintechs can source deposits for you. They can source loans for you. You can have a co-branded stuff. Like PhonePe is a classic example. It's a classic example. Like they have so much of offerings, which they do it for the banks. You as a front end, and the experience what they give is phenomenal in this space. So just keep this in mind, the digital public infrastructure and the distribution. Now, bank needs to connect to both of them for them to be participant in the banking ecosystem. So I'll give you a simple, so even today this exists, this mesh, or not MESH, it's a mesh architecture, MESS architecture. So this is a bank, you have multiple systems and channel, and every system, like for example in India, if you want to onboard, whether it's a liability customer or asset customer or card customer, you need to do KYC. So each of these vendors in the bank system have to integrate with all these systems. So these providers have become a kind of a mafia. So even in India now, we call that the data provider bureaus have become a mafia. They charge huge money on that. So this architecture, every time a new system where you need to get your Aadhaar verifications or you have to integrate with Aadhaar, that system, and that becomes a costlier affair. And not only costlier in terms of money, costlier in terms of effort. And that's where me and Ritesh used to have a lot of fights. He used to tie up with 100 customers, and I used to integrate only 10. Because as a CIO, my speed was limited. The architecture was not there in play. What should be the right architecture is this, where you have a channels, you have an API banking system, you do one-time integration of the API banking systems. It's not a system of record. It's purely a middleware layer, you can call it. You build this layer, you integrate on the banking side once, and this is the banking ecosystem. This will be a standardized ISO 20022 standard, which will integrate with any of your thing in a faster manner. I want to specifically highlight this MCP server and multiple LLMs, because you will need to be future ready for your banks and fintechs to start consuming this layer of technology. So what will happen is API banking becomes the center. Your system of records are here. The banking ecosystem is here, and the AI ecosystem is here. So now this is the classic modular, loosely coupled architecture. So if the CIOs and the bank's senior personnel, they have to think of building it in this manner. The advantage they get is the speed to market, a huge speed to market. Like if me and Ritesh join a bank today, and if he goes and ties up with the bank, he will not have the same crib which he had with me in 2015. I guarantee that on that. If he brings 100, 200 customers, I can integrate them in that speed on that. So that helps bank to grow the revenue, that helps fintech to grow, to allow bank to reach the various parts of the countries, and a lot of benefits comes in through that. I'm not going to talk about that, but I want to actually have a conversation with you guys on questions. Likewise, the distribution channel, if you look at that, so you have this old way of distribution channel. They used to talk to the bank systems individually, and this used to take huge amount of time. This particularly, I'm sorry, my laser is not working, but this used to take, integration used to take huge amount of time. With the API banking system, you have reversed it. You integrate it once, and then the speed increases like 100x. And it's why easiest for me to say, it's difficult in the Indian banking ecosystem because they have grown over a period of 3 decades, and it has become an elephant. To change that elephant, steps have been taken. As I said, one of the largest bank in country have already moved towards this architecture. They have started. And what they have done is, they have not gone this API banking system to any big IT companies. They have gone to the small companies who understands banking, who knows how to navigate through the banking ecosystem and build this. The best part is, the source code of this system will stay with the banks. If there are any banks, you need to think in that direction, that you need to have the source code. You can't make IT companies sit on your head. They are supposed to be sitting underneath you. Today, the situation is IT companies have grown so big, they don't care about the customers. I don't say they don't care, but they will deliver at the time, at the speed, the way they want. Now, to keep them at the bay, de-risking the bank, work with the startups who understand to build a technology, who build it from your need. Today, I can tell you, I was in San Francisco last month and a half. There's a big IT company, HR company called 8fold.ai. He sold his company for $535 million. A young kid, maybe half the age of mine, built that company, $535 million. I asked him, why did you sell the company? You're doing well. He said, nowadays, the development platforms are so good that my platform, I can build from scratch in less than 2 months. So before anybody disrupts me, I sold that company, made money. Now today, he is going, and the way he's offering HR solutions to the banks or to the conglomerate, okay, here is a success factor, which is a big HR company. These are the features. Here is Oracle Fusion. Here are the features. Here is my old company. Here are the features. You pick and choose. It's like a buffet. You pick and choose. I will deliver it to you in next 3 months. And plus, if you have something which you feel are not existing or give me, I'll build it in 3 months for you. So that is where things are going. So getting this built from a startup companies who understand domains and who can build with you is a need of an hour. Indian banks have started taking this steps. And when I tell you guys, skip a generation, don't follow the way things are being done in other countries. You have opportunity to kind of build, once this lean architecture is built, like QR code is a very lean architecture. You don't need to get into this kind of a thing. It's a very lean architecture. You build, and then you can do. For larger interests of the banks and ecosystem, this is a very important piece for banks to participate in the banking ecosystem over here. So I don't to repeat this word because this was covered pieces. So I will just give you a simple way. So this is the bank IT. Somebody wants to have a look at it, please have a look at it because this is a very important section. Bank IT needs to integrate with the API banking system. And this system will be owned by the bank. They have to build this. I'm not saying this is readily available at the, you have to build this. Take a step, banks, to build this. This will sit in the banking ecosystem, or it can be a SaaS ecosystem. This will integrate with the digital public infrastructure of Nepal. This will integrate with the distribution ecosystem of Nepal, and this will integrate with the AI ecosystem of the Nepal, or across the globe. If this system is put in the place rightly, banks can enjoy fintechs can enjoy, and everyone can enjoy this entire architecture. And that's where API banking ecosystem, because API banking is going to be the core, sitting at the fulcrum of that. And again, I'm saying for an API banking, so I'm not saying this is a vendor while I am advising this company. I'm not saying you need to look at this API banking vendor. You need to, there are a lot of startups in Nepal. Start consuming them. Build this API banking system. But don't build this API banking system to make money. Build this API banking system to grow the country, to grow the banking setup in India or in Nepal for that. That's what these people are trying to do. I'll just pause over here. I know I'm probably over the time. Happy to take any questions from you guys. Hi, tell me. Oops, sorry. Can you start the presentation? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Anup, you mentioned that this is the next way forward if banks want to scale up. Now, tell me, for banks who are operating on legacy system, how easy it is to go by this. Going by your explanation, what I understand is the peripheral infrastructure also has to be ready to plug into this.
No, you don't need to. So I got your question, Bharti. So the way this will work is, so this is your legacy infrastructure sitting in the bank. What you need is a physical API gateway, which is like an infrastructure level security. It's not that costly. You need to build this. When I say build this, you have to integrate. So if you have a liability system for onboarding a liability customer deposit, and whatever core banking system you have, you integrate API once. It's a one-time integration. You have a lending system, you do integration here. You have a credit card system, you do one time. It has to start. That's a step needs to be taken. Now, it's not going to be, as I said, it's not going to be on the silver spoon that, okay, aake plug and play kar diya, and then everything will be fine. No. Bank will have to take that step. In India also, like, you will be surprised the TCS core banking system, until now, it is built on COBOL. I'm not kidding. The back end of the TCS bank was COBOL. They have changed now, just a year back, pieces to, but still, somebody has to integrate with them. So API, you can write the APIs, you can write the store procedures to integrate it once, but you can't let the external ecosystem to talk to it directly. Because here is the entire control panel. You need to ensure security, you need to ensure resiliency, you need to ensure business orchestration. I'll give an example to Michael yesterday. So payment APIs, your core banking, I'm sure there are a lot of payment APIs you guys have. You cannot expose this core, all this payment API directly to fintechs or directly to corporates. So if, let's say, your bank wants to integrate with the corporate with a salary account, or even for the payments, you can't open up all of them to integrate with the corporate. Corporates would need a single payment API, which means you have to build a payment orchestrated API over here, business logic. I'll give you a classic example. Like typically, when I'll go a little technical for people to understand, ultimately, the database of a core banking is either Oracle or SQL or anything, and they have their restriction. They have the restriction from the point of view of they can take, at any point in time, only single transaction. So if in an hour, or probably in a minute, you want to do 10,000 transactions, how is it possible? How is it possible? Because transaction will fail, because the record gets locked for every transaction. So what this system does is it builds a logic that it will queue the transactions for a milliseconds, and as soon as the record is released, it will go. So if there are 1,000 transactions in a minute, none of them will fail. So this is the layer you have to build it. And to build this, it requires a hand and a glove combination between the bank's business team, or particularly, I would say, the ops team, business operations team, and the technology, or whoever the startup things are. If bank technology tries to build that on their own, they can't. I tried to build it on my own, I couldn't when I was a part of the bank. But now when I see a bank trying to outsource it to a partner who built it for them, it's a one-time activity, but it's a pain which will start in parallel. You have to start this thing in parallel, build it, and then decommission the old school of thinking. So it's not easy, but this is the way to go. Because APIs are available here nowadays, because most of the core banking systems are giving APIs. So this integration will not be that challenging, to answer the question, unless it was a COBOL-like a system, which I don't think so it exists any longer. So it's I would say, difficult but not impossible. It requires a patience, it requires a top-down focus from board and a management, because bank's board and management feels, and I'll be very candid, because if you're a business person, you feel that technology is a cost center, not a business center. Unfortunately, and it's a fact. I'm not saying it's not. So technology initiatives, because this is not going to give direct edge. Actually, if you do this, bank can grow 100x in a much faster way as compared to in this. So possible, I can run you through. If anybody has any more questions, I'm here for the rest of the day, help you guys, my information available. I am happy to kind of tell you guys how to do this entire execution. Any more questions? One more. Can somebody pass on the mic?
Hi, can you listen to me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I'm Chandan. We are moving, we are getting into a time where agents will be doing transactions for us, and multiple agents will be doing transactions with ethers or with bank, with fintechs and everything. So what I'm asking is, like, are our entities, banks, fintech companies and wallets and everything combined ready for this level of agentic level transactions? And on top of that, how do we make sure that a common guideline, safety guideline is set? How is country like India and Nepal moving towards these guidelines similar to EU guidelines? So should we have a South Asia level guidelines, or these countries should have their own guidelines? Thank you.
So to answer your question, yes, possible. AI as an employee is no longer a myth, it is reality. It is reality. Not only in the banks, also in the IT companies. Like our last role was as a Wipro as a global CIO. We had close to 150 plus AI employees in our organization. When I say AI, agentic AI as an employee, where they were doing a lot of work, which were otherwise done by human. But that doesn't mean the human were asked to go. Human were asked to do much more different work. So I'll come to that. So typically the way this works is, when you can go on a cycle, you don't need a car. Simple logic. So when AI things are coming up in an organization, there is a framework put in. Like I had put up a framework in the organization that if anyone wants to do anything which is AI related, there were 4 pillars. They have to comply to those 4 pillars. Will what you are doing in AI will help to increase the revenue of your organization? Second, will it help to improve the efficiency and reduce your operating cost? Third, will it give an experience to your customers or your employees, both employees and customers? Will it give an experience? Fourth, will it reduce the risk of the organization in some matters or the other pieces? I can give you examples offline how we did that. Now, people may say AI itself is a risk. How can you reduce the risk? There are solutions which can reduce the risk by having for the CRO. Like today, if you ask a CRO, what do you think, what will be the potential NPAs coming down in next 3 months' time? He may not have an answer. But with an AI, you can have a dashboard, real-time dashboard available, which we can say this probably customer will become an NPA in next 3 months' time or next 6 months' time. You have that logic. So you have that. So coming to your question, organization needs to set up this framework of AI. There has to be policy. Policy is very clear. So I had built a policy that my data cannot leave my country. I have to ensure that whatever AI LLMs I'm using have to be in-country available, and I will consume those. At least for the ones which are PII, which means that any sensitive data, personally identifiable information or sensitive information, my data is not going to leave the country at all. If there are non-PII related AI, I was okay to go to Dallas to get the inferencing part. So you need to build that framework pieces.
So you are building these regulations at organizational level. So should organization build it or regulatory body
Both.
define this?
Regulators are building. So as Ritesh said, when API were done, we are the ones who gave them the white papers. Even now, we have given them the AI white papers that how they should be. And in India, particularly with the DPTP Act coming in, these are incorporated into the Act as well. So for example, if I go mutual funds, or for that, but any financial data of the country should not leave the country in any shape and form. Having said that, probably 5 years in the past, it was leaving. It is also leaving now. But the act has come into play and the window is giving. Like, for example, I'll give mutual funds. Mutual fund, the core system is Bloomberg. It's a US-based company. The SEBI, who regulates the mutual funds in India, has given a mandate to all the mutual fund houses that in 2 years' time, you have to move out to a local system. Your data cannot move out of the country, period, or else you shut down your business. So the act has come into play. At the same time, government is giving them time to see how they can comply to it. It's not that switch off from tomorrow, no. They've given the timelines as well. And at the same time, they're building the frameworks very clearly associated with whatever pieces of technology.
Thank you.
I think our time is also up, and we would also like to thank Mr. Anup for taking us through this API banking ecosystem, and a big thank you to our audience as well for those engaging questions.